Hello everyone, let me ask you something that might make you a little uncomfortable. When was the last time a woman truly gave you her all? I don't mean the polite version of love, the surface level attention, the occasional, I miss you text, the half smile across the dinner table. I'm talking about the kind of devotion where she looks at you as if you are the safest place she's ever known, where she trusts you with her deepest fears, her wildest dreams, her most unguarded self. You see, most men think love is about getting something from a woman. But in truth, the women who give themselves fully, emotionally, physically, spiritually, do so only when they sense 4 very specific things in a man. Without these signs, she may still enjoy your company, but she will hold back the most vulnerable, intoxicating parts of her love. And here's the beautiful and dangerous truth. These signs have nothing to do with how much money you have, how tall you are, or how often you hit the gym. They are about something far more rare, the signals you send without even realizing it, the way you carry your presence in her world. If you can embody these 4 signs, she won't just love you, she will trust you with her everything. And that's when the real magic begins. When you strip away all the noise, the dating advice, the Instagram quotes, the endless talk shows, love is really about safety and desire, learning how to coexist. She wants to feel free and alive in your presence, but also secure enough to surrender to you. And that balance, that's where the first sign begins. You see, a woman can meet a man who seems perfect on paper, yet something inside her holds back. She laughs at his jokes, she lets him take her out, she even spends nights in his bed. But there's a part of her that never truly hands over her heart. Why? Because her intuition is scanning for that first, invisible sign: emotional steadiness. It's not about never getting angry, never feeling jealous, or never being shaken by life. It's about how you meet those storms. Picture this, she's had a horrible day at work, her best friend cancels plans, her emotions are frayed, and she walks through the door bracing herself for more chaos. But instead, you greet her with a calm that doesn't need to fix her, doesn't need to match her panic. You hold her with your presence, not just your hands. In that moment, you are not another source of instability. You're the harbor she didn't even know she was searching for. Women test for this without even realizing it. It's in the way they notice how you react when plans change last minute, when someone disrespects you in public, when life throws you something you didn't expect. If you crumble, lash out, or sulk, it tells her she cannot lean on you without fear of you collapsing under the weight. But if you meet it with that quiet, grounded confidence, the kind that says, "We'll figure it out," her body begins to unclench around you. There's something deeply erotic about emotional steadiness. It doesn't sound sexy on the surface, but for a woman past a certain age, who has seen enough of life to know that passion without stability burns fast and dies young, this becomes the foundation for deeper intimacy. Because when you are steady, she feels safe enough to be unsteady around you. She can show you her flaws, her moods, her contradictions, without fearing that it will cost her your affection. And here's the paradox. Steadiness isn't about being passive. It's about being anchored in yourself while still engaging with her fully. Think of it as the difference between a stone and a tree. A stone just sits there, unmoved, but lifeless. A tree sways with the wind, feels the seasons, yet its roots run deep enough that it does not fall. That's the kind of steadiness she craves. But steadiness alone is not enough. In fact, if that's all you bring, she may respect you, but she won't necessarily be drawn to you in the way that makes her give everything. For that, we move into the second sign, a quality so rare that when a woman encounters it, she feels an almost involuntary pull toward the man who embodies it. It's the ability to make her feel seen, not just looked at. And yes, there's a difference. Being looked at is easy. Men do it all the time. They notice her body, her beauty, the way her dress fits. But being seen is something else entirely. Being seen means you register the way her eyes hesitate before she answers a question. You catch the little shadow that crosses her face when she mentions her father. You notice that she orders a different drink when she's tired, or that she tucks her hair behind her ear when she's trying to hide a smile. When you see her in this way, you're telling her, "I notice you in the moments when you think no one is watching." And for a woman, this is intoxicating. It tells her that she is not invisible to you, that her complexity is not too much, that you are willing to pay attention to more than just the parts of her that are easy to love. But here's the nuance. Being perceptive doesn't mean interrogating her or pointing out every detail you notice. It's not about making her feel studied. It's about making her feel understood. Maybe you adjust your plans because you sense she's had a draining day. Maybe you let a moment breathe instead of rushing to fill the silence. Maybe you remember the name of the book she mentioned in passing 3 weeks ago. The truth is, when a man makes a woman feel seen, he becomes a mirror she actually wants to look into. Because through his eyes, she sees herself as more vibrant, more valued, more fully alive. And when she starts associating that feeling with you, she opens doors she keeps locked to everyone else. These first 2 signs, your steadiness and your ability to truly see her, create a kind of gravitational pull. She finds herself wanting to share more, to trust more, to offer more of herself without the usual guardrails. But the most remarkable thing, you're not forcing anything. You're not persuading her with grand gestures or casing her with desperate energy. You're simply showing up in ways that make her feel both secure and deeply desired. And that combination is where her willingness to give you everything begins to grow, not out of obligation, not out of fear of losing you, but because it feels natural, safe, and thrilling all at once. Now, as we continue, you'll see how these signs build on each other, how one makes the next possible, until you reach the point where her love, trust, and devotion become almost inevitable. The thing about being steady and truly seeing her is that it creates the ground where something far more delicate can grow. Because once a woman feels safe and noticed, her next instinct is to ask herself, can I trust him with the parts of me that aren't polished? And this leads us to the third sign, the one that turns a good connection into something unshakable, emotional honesty. Not the kind of honesty where you simply tell her if you like her dress or whether you had a good day at work. I'm talking about the courage to let her see the man behind the armor. Because here's a truth men rarely admit. Many of you have been taught since boyhood that your value comes from having all the answers, never flinching, never revealing the cracks in your walls. But a woman who's ready to give herself fully doesn't fall for the man who pretends he has no cracks. She falls for the man who can show her where they are and trusts her enough to let her place her fingers on them without fear of judgment. Imagine this: you've been carrying something heavy, a fear about your career, a moment of shame from your past, a dream you haven't dared to say out loud. Instead of swallowing it, you share it with her, not in a way that dumps your pain onto her shoulders, but in a way that says, I want you to know the real me, not just the man I play in public. When you do this, something extraordinary happens. She doesn't see weakness. She sees bravery. Because in a world where most men armor up to survive, vulnerability is a rare form of strength. It tells her you trust her enough to risk her opinion of you, that you believe her presence is a safe space for the truth. Women give their bodies to many men, but they give their souls only to those who make them feel like they can show up unfiltered and still be loved. And when you open the door by being emotionally honest, you invite her to do the same. Suddenly, the conversations go deeper. The silences become more comfortable. Even the disagreements shift because you're no longer two people trying to win an argument. You're two people trying to understand each other. And yet there is a caution here. Vulnerability without boundaries is chaos. If you spill everything in a raw, uncontained flood, she won't feel safe. She'll feel overwhelmed. Emotional honesty works only when it's paired with self-respect. You reveal your truth, but you also hold your center. You let her see the man who bleeds, but also the man who heals himself. Now here's where the fourth sign starts to weave itself in. Because once you've built safety, seen her deeply, and opened yourself honestly, you have to give her something she can't manufacture for herself: direction. Direction isn't control. It's not about telling her what to do or forcing her to live according to your map. Direction is about having a vision for your own life so clear, so compelling, that she wants to join you on the road you're walking. One of the most misunderstood truths about women is this: they don't actually want a man to complete them. They want a man who's already complete, whose life is already rich with purpose, and who invites them into that richness. Think about it. If you have no vision beyond her, she will eventually feel the weight of being your entire world, and that weight will crush the romance. But if you have passions, goals, a sense of mission, whether that's building a business, mastering a craft, traveling the world, creating something that will outlive you, then your relationship becomes a shared adventure instead of a closed loop. And here's the magic: direction is deeply attractive because it removes pressure from her. She doesn't have to be the source of all your fulfillment. She gets to be your companion, your confidant, your co-creator. She can relax into her feminine energy because she knows you're steering the ship, not drifting wherever the wind blows. Women will give their hearts to a man who feels safe, seen, and open, but they will give their lives to a man who knows where he's going. Because aligning herself with you doesn't feel like a risk. It feels like joining a movement, a vision, a purpose that elevates both of you. Direction also changes how she responds to conflict. Without it, every disagreement can feel like a threat to the relationship's identity. But when your life has a larger compass, the relationship can bend without breaking. You're not just reacting to each other. You're both moving towards something that matters more than winning today's argument. And perhaps most importantly, direction inspires respect. Passion can be sparked in a moment. Desire can be lit by a look. But respect, that's earned over time by consistently showing that you are a man whose actions align with his words, whose steps align with his vision. When these four signs, steadiness, deep seeing, emotional honesty, and direction, start to intertwine, something powerful takes root. She no longer measures you only by how you make her feel in the moment. She starts to measure you by the space you hold in her life, by the way her own world expands when she's with you. And that is when she begins to give you everything, not because you demanded it, not because you persuaded her, but because it feels like the most natural, inevitable choice she could make. The irony is, by the time you reach this point, you may not even be thinking about getting anything from her at all, because you'll be too busy living the kind of life that draws her to you without effort, the kind of life that makes love feel less like a negotiation and more like a dance. Here's where things start to shift from theory to lived experience, because these signs are not abstract ideals. They breathe in the small, almost invisible choices you make every day. And when she begins to feel them consistently, she starts building something around you that she doesn't offer to just anyone, the kind of love that feels like home. Let's imagine a moment. You've had a long week, work drained you, your mind is scattered, you just want quiet. She comes over, but she's not in the light, easy mood you were hoping for. She's restless, maybe a little irritable. In the past, you might have taken this personally, thinking she's ungrateful for your time or annoyed at you for no reason. But now, anchored in that steadiness we talked about, you don't match her turbulence. You don't retreat into silence or meet her frustration with your own. You simply give her space to unfold without trying to fix or control the moment. That's when she notices, he's not afraid of my moods, and something inside her relaxes. Women live in a world where they are often told they're too much, too emotional, too complicated, too changeable. When you can sit with all of that without flinching, it tells her she doesn't have to hide those parts from you. Later that evening, you're talking. The conversation drifts into something deeper. Her fears about her career, her uncertainty about whether she's on the right path. Instead of giving her a pep talk or rushing to offer solutions, you listen. Not the kind of listening where you're waiting for your turn to speak, but the kind where you're fully inside her world for those moments. You ask a question that makes her pause, one she hasn't been asked before. When you imagine yourself truly happy, what's the picture that comes to mind? That's the seeing we spoke of earlier, catching the subtle cues, asking the right questions, showing her that you're not just hearing words, you're hearing the person behind them. And here's where the magic compounds when she feels seen in this way. Her instinct is to let you see more. She begins to share stories she's never told, opinions she's kept guarded, desires she's only whispered to herself. This is where emotional honesty meets reciprocity, because now she's trusting you with her inner life, and you're trusting her with yours. Maybe you tell her about the time you failed spectacularly at something you cared about, not to impress her with your resilience, but to show her the human side you rarely reveal. Maybe you admit that you've been afraid to take a certain risk, and you're working on it. When these exchanges happen, a subtle but powerful shift occurs. You're no longer playing the roles you might play in the outside world. Provider, protector, achiever. You're just two humans face to face, letting each other be flawed and brilliant at the same time. And it's in those moments that love starts to feel less like a performance and more like a place to rest. But there's something else here, something many men miss. Even in this deep vulnerability, she still needs to see that you are moving forward in your own life, because without that direction, vulnerability can feel like drifting together with no shore in sight. That's why direction is not just the fourth sign, it's the anchor that keeps all the others from floating away. You might think she wants your undivided attention 24/7, but the truth is, she respects you more when she sees that you are also committed to something bigger than the relationship, that you're building, creating, striving, not from a place of obsession, but from a sense of purpose. This doesn't mean you have to be conquering mountains every week. It might mean you're learning a skill you've always wanted to master, growing a business you believe in, or working toward a fitness goal that makes you feel alive in your body. The specifics matter less than the fact that you are in motion, that you are a man with a horizon. Here's why this matters more than you might realize. When she sees your life moving towards something meaningful, she feels safer giving herself to you, because she knows she's not handing her heart to a man who will wake up one day, restless and lost, wondering if she was the reason his life feels incomplete. She's joining a man who already knows who he is and where he's going, and that stability frees her to give more of herself without the fear of having to carry both of you. This is where the everything she gives becomes more than just love. It becomes investment, her time, her loyalty, her willingness to stand beside you when things aren't easy. She starts introducing you to her inner circle, not because she wants to show you off, but because she sees you as someone who belongs in her long-term world. She talks about we instead of I. When she imagines the future, she begins building her life around you, not in a way that erases her independence, but in a way that intertwines your paths so naturally that it feels strange to imagine them separate. And here's the thing, this isn't about manipulation. You're not trying to extract devotion from her like it's a transaction. You're creating the conditions where her devotion flows naturally, almost effortlessly. Because when a woman feels steady in your presence, Seen in her depths, safe to be honest, and inspired by your direction, she doesn't have to be convinced to give you everything. She wants to. And this is where the relationship stops being about what you can get from her and starts being about what you can build together. It's where your intimacy stops being a series of moments and becomes a continuous thread woven through your days. But the real beauty of these 4 signs is that they're not one-time actions. They're a way of being. And when you live them consistently, something shifts in her that is almost primal. She stops scanning for danger, stops questioning your intentions, stops guarding her heart against imagined threats. Instead, she moves toward you with a kind of openness that makes everything, from the way she looks at you across a room to the way she touches you in the dark, more alive, more certain, more generous. And when you reach that point, you'll realize this was never about figuring out the perfect thing to say, the flawless move to make, the clever trick to win her over. It was always about showing her, through the way you live and the way you love, that she can trust you with the most vulnerable, most precious parts of herself. It's one thing to spark devotion. It's another to keep it alive when the novelty wears off, when life settles into routines, when the first rush of infatuation is replaced by the everyday reality of 2 people sharing time, space, and responsibilities. This is the point where so many relationships quietly start to fade, not with a dramatic breakup, but with a slow erosion of the very things that made her want to give you everything in the first place. And yet, if you've truly embodied those 4 signs, steadiness, deep seeing, emotional honesty, and direction, you already have the foundation to keep that devotion not just alive, but growing stronger. The secret is understanding that what made her give you everything is the same thing that will keep her giving. You don't win these signs once and then coast. You live them day after day, in ways that are both obvious and invisible. Think about steadiness, for example. In the early stages, it may have been the way you stayed calm when she was upset, the way you didn't overact to small conflicts. But as the years pass, steadiness becomes something deeper. It's in the way you remain present even when you're distracted by work or stress. It's in the way you resist the urge to withdraw during arguments and instead stay engaged, showing her that your commitment isn't conditional on everything being easy. And here's a truth people rarely talk about: the more secure she feels in your steadiness, the more she will challenge you. Not to test your worth, but to see if she can trust your stability under greater weight. Life will throw you curveballs, financial struggles, family tensions, unexpected loss, and these moments will either reinforce or undermine the safety she feels with you. If you meet them with grounded strength, she won't just feel love, she'll feel protected in a way that allows her to pour even more of herself into the relationship. Then there's the act of truly seeing her. At the beginning, it may have been about noticing the small details she thought no one else caught. But over time, seeing her becomes about noticing who she is becoming. People change, dreams shift. The woman she is 5 years from now will not be exactly the woman you met. And many relationships fail because one partner insists on relating to an outdated version of the other. When you continue to see her evolving self, to notice when her values shift, when new passions emerge, when old fears are replaced by new ambitions, you communicate something profoundly rare. I'm not in love with the idea of you. I'm in love with the real, changing, breathing you. And that makes her feel safe to keep growing without fearing she'll grow away from you. Emotional honesty, too, deepens over time. In the early days, it might have been about revealing personal truths or sharing vulnerabilities. Later, it becomes about navigating the inevitable moments when your needs and desires diverge. Many men avoid these conversations, afraid of conflict, but avoiding honesty to keep the peace slowly erodes intimacy. If you can express your truth without cruelty, without turning disagreement into disconnection, you keep the emotional fabric of the relationship intact. This is also where direction takes on new meaning. When she first met you, direction might have been about your career path, your personal goals, your vision for the future. But over time, it's also about the direction of your shared life. Are you still creating experiences together, still moving towards something that excites both of you? Or have you settled into a rhythm so predictable that it no longer feels alive? Women are drawn to men with vision, but they stay devoted to men who invite them into that vision. This doesn't mean she has to be involved in every project you take on, but it does mean she feels like her presence matters in the life you're building. She wants to feel like you're both contributing to something bigger than the relationship itself, whether that's a family, a creative project, a shared adventure, or simply a way of living that reflects both your values. And here's the paradox. When you keep these signs alive over time, her devotion starts to feed back into you. It becomes a cycle. The more steady, attentive, honest, and purposeful you are, the more she invests, the more inspired you are to live those signs even more fully. The relationship stops being a place you go to get love and becomes a place where love is actively generated by both of you every day. But sustaining this isn't about grand gestures. In fact, the couples who keep their bond alive for decades often do so through small, consistent acts that reinforce the 4 signs. It's the way you still put down your phone when she's speaking, the way you remember to touch her as you pass in the kitchen, the way you share your dreams for the next chapter of your life, not as a performance, but because you actually want her there with you. This is the part where many men get lazy, not because they stop caring, but because they start assuming her devotion is permanent. They forget that devotion is not something you win once, it's something you continually earn by showing up in the ways that matter most. And yes, there will be seasons where one or both of you have less to give. Times when external pressures, personal struggles, or sheer exhaustion make it harder to be your best selves. That's when these 4 signs matter even more, because they are not dependent on perfect circumstances. They are choices. They are the way you decide to meet her, even when you're tired, even when you're stressed, even when it would be easier to check out. Here's the quiet truth about keeping her devotion over time. It's less about what you say and more about what you embody. Anyone can promise steadiness, but not everyone can hold it when life tests them. Anyone can say, I see you, but not everyone keeps paying attention when the honeymoon fades. Anyone can open up emotionally once, but not everyone continues to share honestly when the truths are harder to speak. Anyone can set a direction, but not everyone keeps walking it when the road gets steep. If you can keep living these signs, not perfectly, but with real intention, you give her something that becomes more valuable than excitement, more lasting than passion, trust. And trust is the soil where deep, lasting desire grows. Because contrary to what movies tell us, long-term desire isn't about constant novelty. It's about the freedom to be fully yourself with someone who still makes you feel alive. It's about knowing that the person you've given everything to is still showing up, still holding the space you fell in love with, still inviting you into a life worth living. And when she feels that, when she feels like she is still choosing you, and you are still choosing her, her devotion doesn't just remain, it deepens. It becomes the kind of bond that can weather storms, adapt to change, and still feel electric in the quiet moments. That's when you realize that getting her to give you everything was never the goal. The real goal was to become the kind of man who inspires that level of love, and to keep being him long after the first spark. When you've lived these 4 signs long enough, steadiness, truly seeing her, emotional honesty and direction, something changes in the way she looks at you. It's subtle at first, a softness in her eyes when you walk into the room, a warmth in her voice when she says your name. But over time, it becomes undeniable. Her entire body language shifts, as if she's leaning toward you even when you're across the room. This isn't infatuation anymore. Infatuation is loud, it shouts, it rushes, it burns quickly. What you're seeing now is quieter, deeper. It's the kind of love that doesn't need constant reassurance because it's woven into the very fabric of her days. It's in the way she thinks about you when she's making plans, in the way she feels more herself in your presence than anywhere else, in the way she starts to speak about her life as if it is naturally, inevitably intertwined with yours. And the truth is, that's when her everything becomes something much richer than you might have imagined when you first started down this path. At the beginning, maybe you thought everything meant love, loyalty, and physical intimacy, but now you realize it also means the small, unglamorous sacrifices she makes without you even asking. It means defending you when you're not in the room. It means choosing to understand you even when she doesn't agree with you. It means giving you the benefit of the doubt when the world is quick to judge. These are not gestures you can demand. They are gifts she gives because she feels safe, valued, and inspired by the life you're building together. And the more she gives, the more you understand the responsibility that comes with receiving it. Because here's the thing no one tells you. Once a woman gives you everything, you hold something fragile and irreplaceable in your hands. That's why these 4 signs can never be a trick or a short-term strategy. If you think of them as tools to get something from her, you'll eventually drop them the moment you feel secure, and she will feel that drop instantly. Women are exquisitely tuned to changes in energy. She will notice if your steadiness starts to crack into neglect, if your attention drifts away from truly seeing her, if your honesty becomes guarded again, if your direction blurs into aimlessness. And the moment she feels those foundations shifting, she will begin to pull parts of herself back, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. The real art is in living these signs because they are who you are, not because they are what she needs. Steadiness should come from a deep relationship with yourself, the kind that doesn't need external validation to stand firm. Seeing her deeply should come from a natural curiosity about the people you love, not from a performance to make her feel special. Emotional honesty should come from a commitment to living truthfully, not from a calculated vulnerability meant to win trust. Direction should come from your own hunger for a meaningful life, not from a desire to impress. When you embody these qualities as a way of being, she feels the difference. She senses that they are not conditional, that they are not transactional. And that's when her devotion stops being a reaction to you and becomes a part of who she is with you. She is no longer just loving you for what you give her. She is loving you for who you are, even in the moments when you have nothing to give but yourself. This is the kind of relationship where time doesn't erode the connection, it enriches it. Where the years bring not boredom, but depth. Where you find yourselves laughing at things no one else would understand, because the language of your love has become entirely your own. Where even silence feels like a form of intimacy, because you've built so much trust that words are no longer needed to fill every space. And maybe most importantly, this is where you realize that love, real sustaining, life-giving love, isn't about keeping someone from leaving. It's about giving them so many reasons to stay that the thought of leaving doesn't even occur to them. When she's given you everything, it's not because she can't imagine life without you. It's because she doesn't want to. It's because life with you feels like the truest expression of who she is and who she wants to be. And here's something you might not expect: the more she gives, the more you will want to give in return. Because receiving love like this doesn't make you complacent. It makes you generous. You'll find yourself wanting to meet her needs not out of obligation, but out of a genuine desire to see her flourish. You'll want to protect her peace, champion her dreams, be the man she always knew you could be. This is the quiet reward of living these 4 signs. You don't just win her heart, you become a better man in the process. Your steadiness doesn't just make her feel safe, it makes you more resilient in every area of your life. Your ability to see her deeply sharpens your empathy, making you a better friend, leader, and human being. Your emotional honesty strengthens your integrity, giving you a kind of self-respect that can't be shaken. Your direction drives you toward a life of purpose, one that leaves a mark far beyond this relationship. So if you take nothing else from this, take this: the way to inspire a woman to give you everything is not to ask for it, not to demand it, and not to bargain for it. It is to become the kind of man who naturally evokes that kind of devotion simply by the way he moves through the world. And when you do, you'll see that what you gain is far greater than what you set out to get. You'll have a love that is not bound by fear, not limited by circumstance, and not easily shaken by time. You'll have a partner who chooses you again and again, not because she has to, but because she loves the man she gets to choose. That's when you'll know you didn't just get her to give you everything. You created a life where giving everything to each other feels like the most natural thing in the world.